fuck is going on down there?
I wish I knew how to quit you.
You can't. Can you?
After my first movie review, I actually received a number of complaints.
Who did this? Who turned him in?
I did.
Surprisingly, not for my analysis, but for my choice of movie to review.
Your taste is in your ass.
It was pointed out that reviewing movies like this encourages more of this so-called mindless trash to be made. And you can guess what my response to this was.
Kiss my entire ass.
So instead of concentrating my attention on what's wrong with American movies these days,
You know, that's the problem with the American cinema. Can't handle any complexity in it, you know?
I decided to point out what's right about them. And nothing says American movie like the Western. And when it comes to Westerns, nobody did it better than Clint Eastwood. So grab your bags and saddle up as we look at social justice, Clint Eastwood style, in the 1968 classic Hang 'em High. Now there's no denying that Clint Eastwood is a talented actor, writer, and director with a career that spans almost half a century.
And I've drunk more beer and pissed more blood and banged more quiff, busted more... all you numbnuts put together.
Despite being falsely accused at every turn of some slight or another, continues to give Hollywood a healthy dose of the middle finger every chance he gets.
I'm not doing this because I want to take long showers with you assholes.
And for me, nothing represents this attitude better than his first self-production and his portrayal of Marshal Jedediah Cooper, a retired lawman who buys cattle from a man posing as a local rancher, who not moments before killed the actual rancher and his family. Discovered by a group of 9 vigilantes led by Captain Wilson, Cooper is falsely accused of the murder, immediately stripped of his saddle and goods, hung from the nearest tree and left for dead. I mean, you know things are fucked up when you're being strung up by the skipper from Gilligan's Island. Shit, Gilligan's ass wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes with this guy in charge. Fortunately, Cooper is rescued by Marshal David Bliss.
Some people calls this hell, but you're still in Oklahoma territory.
And is taken to Fort Grant. Judge Adam Fenton, realizing his innocence, not only allows Cooper to witness the actual guilty man's hanging, but recruits Cooper to track down the men that hung him.
A happy hunting ground filled with bushwhackers, horse thieves, whiskey peddlers, counterfeiters, hide peelers, marauders that'll kill you for a hat band.
For me, one of the best scenes is where Cooper encounters the first vigilante named Reno. Seeing his stolen saddle outside of the local saloon, Reno is oblivious as to Cooper's identity until Cooper reveals the scar left from the hangman's rope.
When you hang a man, you better look at him.
And the look on Reno's face is one of a man who knows he's rightly and truly fucked. And despite telling Reno he wants to take him alive, Reno draws his gun only to be taken out instantly by Cooper. The story of this encounter is even enough to cause one of the vigilantes, named Jenkins, to turn himself in to Judge Fenton, even though he knows it means certain death. While turning in one of his prisoners, Cooper encounters a young woman named Rachel Warren, a woman who continues searching, like Cooper, for the men who did her wrong.
We all have our ghosts, Marshal. You hunt your way. I hunt mine.
One by one, Cooper hunts down the vigilantes. After seeing Cooper arrest the skipper, Stone, Vigilante Miller decides to steal some cattle and escape, only to be captured by Cooper and returned to Fort Grant. Hearing this, the remaining vigilantes attempt to buy Cooper off. He takes their money, but he makes it clear he's still coming for them.
Tell your friends we're even, money-wise.
While vigilantes Maddow and Charlie Blackfoot decide to leg it for the border, Captain Wilson and the remaining men, Tommy and Loomis, decide to go on the offense, and during a 6-man hanging including Miller, they gun Cooper down in broad daylight at a local whorehouse.
Where we proceed to get the clap and the drip and the crabs and generally a poor attitude towards the female of the species.
Cooper is nursed back to health by Rachel, but despite his growing affection for her, remains hell-bent on revenge. Now recovered, Cooper brings the fight to the home of Captain Wilson. One by one, Tommy and Loomis are taken out, and when Cooper finally breaks into Captain Wilson's house, realizing he's done, Captain Wilson chooses to hang himself rather than be taken alive. And rather than ride off into the sunset, the movie ends with Marshal Cooper in pursuit of Maddow and Charlie Blackfoot. While this movie features a solid cast of supporting actors such as Inger Stevens, Ben Johnson, Bruce Dern, and even an appearance by a young Dennis Hopper, this movie does have its share of problems.
Man's got to know his limitations.
The movie goes to great lengths to show character actor Ben Johnson's portrayal of Marshal David Bliss as being a pragmatic and compassionate man who only does what he must when he must.
You chained him, now you bury him.
But his character is later killed unceremoniously off-screen, and despite saving his life at the beginning, Eastwood's character barely seems to acknowledge his passing.
Won't be easy to fill his shoes.
No, it won't. Well, I better get on back to Red Creek.
Inger Stevens gives a compelling performance as Rachel Warren, a damaged woman like Cooper who commits her life to hunting down the men who wronged her. Unfortunately, the on-screen chemistry between her and Eastwood's character seems almost non-existent in times, and this is vital regarding any on-screen love interest. And fair warning regarding the uneven volume on the soundtrack, which instead of enhancing the scene, seems to function more like a jump scare in a cheap horror movie.
God, I hate it when these things do that.
Admittedly, the story certainly doesn't fit the usual mold of the classic Western. There are no sunset scenes, no happy endings, and while the character Rachel is able to move past her obsession for revenge, the movie ends with Eastwood leaving Rachel in pursuit of the remaining vigilantes. But that's what I believe that makes this particular film so unique. At a time when Westerns ended with the boy gets girl, rides off into the sunset and bedazzled assless chaps,
but for the record, all chaps are assless.
It tells a compelling story of the power of revenge, and how friendship, relationships, and even love can be cast aside in its never-ending pursuit. Given this, I have no doubt that when Clint Eastwood passes, God forbid,
I'm gonna haunt your ass all over this goddamn town.
Hollywood will honor his memory by banning him, rebooting him, or selectively editing his films to portray him as a villain or cast him to suit whatever Hollywood considers a more deserving protagonist.
I have dined with some of the ugliest goddamn bitches in my time. And I have dined with some of the goddamnedest ugly bitches in this world. But you, my dear, are the ugliest bitch of them all.
I mean, hell, even video game Clint Eastwood impersonators aren't safe from the wrath of social media these days. So if you haven't seen it, or you haven't seen it in a while, grab a copy or dust it off, sit back, relax, and enjoy a cinematic experience from one of the true mavericks of Hollywood. Tune in next time for Sister Rachel's Story Hour. Gregory Hines delivers a PSA on venereal disease. And as always, remember, when they decide to clutch their pearls, we'll provide the necklace. Right here on Salty Buttered Bags.